the more that our ongoing focus is just about what's difficult and what's challenging in our lives, the more we look for that, the more we see that. So welcome to the first Thoughtful Thursday. So Thoughtful Thursdays is where I'm going to share some ideas, thoughts, either things that I'm just kind of personally reflecting on, things that have been coming out of some of the work I've been doing with my own private clients. Might be some themes that have been coming out, some of the other videos that have been coming out. But I wanted to start with something which is pretty close to my own heart. And you probably got the idea from the title of this session, which is the more serious we are about our problems, the more serious they become. Now, I want to qualify this with, firstly, some people's lives are awful. What I mean by that is they are full of deep and challenging suffering on a moment-to-moment, day-to-day basis. It is rarely helpful to get into the kind of competing for whose life is more difficult that sometimes happens. There is always, I suppose, there's one person in the world that has the most awful life, one person that has the best life, and everyone in the middle has someone either side of them in terms of that equation, if we're going to be objective about it. The problem is, though, that the more that our ongoing focus is just about what's difficult and what's challenging in our lives, the more we look for that, the more we see that. In fact, a great experiment, just to try for a moment, is I want you to look around. If you're driving, don't do this, but if you're in a room or you're at home or you're kind of walking about or whatever you're doing, look around. And I want you to look for everything that you can find that is red. I'm going to test you on this in a minute. So go and look for everything that's red. Maybe look all around you. Find maybe there's, whatever it is. There's books, there's cars, whatever it is. So remember all the things that are red. And I want you to close your eyes. And now I want you to tell me all the things around you which are blue. Now, keep your eyes closed. Now, the chances are that that's a struggle. If I was now to ask you all the things that are red, you could tell me all the things that are red. You open your eyes, finish the exercise. The point obviously being is that we get what we look for. Same thing, anyone who's got a new car, or car that's new to you, you suddenly start seeing that car everywhere. Or you have a baby and you start seeing babies everywhere. There's a part of our brain called the reticular activating system, and its job is to decide what to focus on. Of the millions of pieces of information that are always coming to us, our reticular activating system helps us decide where to focus, what to delete, what to distort, what not to see, what to look for. Now, this becomes important when we're looking at how we create our mood, how we create how we feel on a day-to-day basis. Because if we have significant suffering, or if we don't have significant suffering, and we keep looking for all the things in our life which are difficult, which are bad, which are challenging, we will keep seeing those. When we have more humor, when we have more fun, when we have more play, it shifts our perspective. We start to see things differently. Probably the film that had the biggest impact on my vision for Optimum Health Clinic and my own vision as well for my career as a practitioner was a film called Patch Adams, which stars Robin Williams, and it must have come out probably 20 years ago or so now. And I remember watching it when I was on my own healing path from ME chronic fatigue and being totally in some way shocked by the way that the protagonist in this is a doctor who goes for his own mental health challenge, ends up in a mental hospital, and then basically discovers the power of humor to transform and to change people's lives. He then starts his home medical center, and the whole thing is built around community and humor and play. And it's a very touching, moving, it's a true story. And it made me realize that was not just something that was important in my healing journey, but also in terms of how Optimum Health Clinic works. It's not quite as radical, as dramatic as some of the stuff that you see in the film, but the place for humor and the place for play, and sometimes laughing about things that are difficult doesn't need to be disrespectful. Obviously, we have to be careful of our inner critic, that voice of inner judgment coming in, and jokes having a kind of barb to them, having an edge to them, where it's not kind of light-hearted, kind of well-intentioned play. It's a kind of like not very well hidden attack or judgment. So I'm not talking about that kind of humor. What I'm talking about is the kind of being able to hold things lightly, being able to hold things with, we can understand that something's really serious and really challenging, but we can also have a light attitude. We can also, things can be funny, things can be playful. There's a whole school of psychology called provocative therapy, and at some of the extremes it can be quite shocking, but where therapists deliberately use provocative humor as a way to change people's perspectives. I think used too much, it can not be so helpful. And I think used without a lot of heart and care and compassion, it can also not be so helpful. But it can be a great tool sometimes just to loosen the grip of the way that we're holding onto things. So as you're watching this or listening to this, perhaps just reflect for a minute in terms of what is your own relationship like to your own challenge and suffering? Now, for some of us, that relationship is that we're kind of constantly ignoring our feelings and actually being more in touch, and feeling more of the kind of the heaviness and the weight of our feelings can be an important part of getting more embodied and processing and digesting. But if we have a reactivity to people's humor or lightness, or we feel that everyone has to feel the kind of heaviness and the difficulty of what we're experiencing, then that's maybe something to look at. And if we don't have much humor in our lives, watching comedies. One of the things that became very helpful for me on my healing path was watching a lot of comedy films or watching some stand-up comedy. I think I watched Billy Connolly's Australian documentary, which had kind of excerpts of his comedy shows, probably like 10 times when I was ill. I think part of the reason actually why I watched it so much is I was 16, 17 at the time when it came out, and Billy Connolly used to use the word fuck like all the time, and I was watching it at my grandparents' house where the word poo would have not been okay. And it was just like something about, oh my God, like I'm allowed to watch something that has swearing, because Billy Connolly was Scottish and my grandfather was Scottish, and he was allowed to get away with that language and I certainly wasn't. But there was something about that kind of lightness and that kind of comedy attitude to life which was really, really helpful. And something that I've noticed at Optimum Health Clinic is sometimes when we're dealing with really difficult, heavy situations, a little bit of carefully thought about black humor or comedy just allows everyone to relax a little bit. One of the things that I will often do running workshops is in the first 10, 15 minutes of the workshop is have, I say jokes that are not generally very funny, but to just have a kind of light comedic attitude to things. Same with the kids. If the kids at home are really distressed, once that initial kind of comfort and holding has been provided and things are settling, to start to bring some play, to start to bring some humor into things. So just take some time to reflect, where are you in your own life in terms of access to humor, to lightness, to softness, to play. And if you're taking things too seriously, realize that you're making them more serious by doing that. Your reticular activating system, that part of your brain, is constantly looking for what you tell it to look for. If you're looking for what's wrong, you're looking for suffering, you're looking for problems, you're going to see more of that. If you look for the kind of lightness and the softness and the play and the humor, you're going to see more of that. It is possible to be in a very difficult situation, to be present to that, feeling the reality of that, and to have humor and softness. Make sure the humor doesn't have judgment. It's not the inner critic kind of coming in, but it comes from a place of freedom and play and kind of self-care, really. It's a source of self-love and support. So I hope that's been helpful, useful. Let me know. It'd be great in the comments, people to share things that they find, that either comedy films that you love, stand-up comedians you like. You can tell some jokes if you want to. I don't dare try and tell jokes. I'm very bad at telling jokes. But yeah, share what brings humor and lightness to your own lives and your own situations. Tomorrow, we've got the first Flourishing Friday. Flourishing Fridays are primarily aimed at practitioners, but I think there'll be a lot of ideas in there that'll be useful to people generally. We are going to talk tomorrow about self-development is a superpower. Why, as a practitioner, working on your own self-development is critical to being not just effective in the work that you do, but also being able to sustain the intensity of the work that you do. So I look forward to talking with you then.